Hi, good morning. It's Jessie. I'm back for more. Um, so I hope that you understand my objective here is to teach you something and make you better people. Um, I turned on the news this morning and immediately I hear a certain person saying that, well, he's being prosecuted for a crime and he has a trial, that the prosecutor is trying to murder him. And I should hope that my testimony before you is not manipulated, twisted, and undermined by selfish people um, gleaning from me to make up their own alibis. What happened to me, um, when I say it was murder, what you're doing is murder, I wasn't given a trial, okay? I had my life stripped away. Okay? Now, if anybody's ever watched Oppenheimer, yeah, Oppenheimer it'll, it'll show you the root of this problem. And if the tree is bad, you must take it up and throw the whole thing out, because if you don't, that that fruit that it's producing will multiply and the whole nation will be corrupt, right? So in Oppenheimer, we're told some things, right? We're told that there's a power that believes it survives by staying hidden, and they think that this is true power. Liar. True power can stand in the light and be seen for who it is. It doesn't have to get innocent people to do their dirty work for them. It doesn't have to use other people's hands. That is not true power. That is manipulation. That is manipulation and control. And when you set a standard like this, liars, when you set standards like this, it transfers, it becomes the standard of the nation. So where you're doing one thing, let's hit them through other people. We have children doing the same thing every day. Children doing the same thing, Let me give you an example, okay? My my kid, she's a senior in high school, and she loves to learn. She's like me. She just gobbles information up. She wants to know, tell me how it works, tell me the rules, tell me the laws, tell me everything. Knowledge is good, teach me. But her classmates, they're like, why does he talk so much, referring to the teacher? And he needs to just shut up. Like, they're so big, they don't need to learn anything. They're not in school to learn anything, they're so entitled that the teacher has is subject to their judgment, you know is subject to their rule of law, and everybody has to go their way, and anybody who doesn't go their way is ostracized. Like, you're such a brown noser. Oh, you just think you're better than everybody else. Oh, you're a try hard. Let's see what other things. You're so arrogant, just stupid little comments that they make. And it's because they're not there building themselves up. It's because they're not there to glean the instruction that the teacher has to offer. They're not there to make themselves better, to prove themselves ready to enter the world, to make a contribution into the world. They're not being taught that this is the purpose of being in school. They're not being taught to respect the teacher. Um, and so they want to eat the teacher. They want to eat everyone. They just want to consume and consume and consume, but they just get fat because they consume. You heard the expression that that person has a fat head. They're just big-headed. They need to get over themselves, right? This is where this expression comes from. People who pretend like they're bigger than they are, people who act like everybody's beneath them, people who act like you can destroy someone just by talking bad about them. And if you can destroy someone by talking bad about them, then you don't have to learn anything from them. Um, It's a problem in the world when you set standards like this. It's a real problem in the world when it translates, because these same people, you put them in employment and they're watching the clock, they're talking mess, they're barely getting any work done, if they're getting work done at all. you know um they're always pointing the finger at someone else, they're stealing someone else's work, plagiarizing someone else's words, someone else's plans, someone else's ideas. It's a messy world, and this is the way that the world is, because you join together in this group here. You say, we got mob justice over here. We set the standards for ourselves, and everybody just has to bow down to us, because the mob prescribes what is right. Which is why we have this whole abortion debate going on in our legislation for years and years and years, because the mob prescribes what is right. And while everyone is bowed down to the mob because they don't want the government to be overthrown, they don't realize that, hey, we shouldn't even be having this argument. We should be teaching them to be better people. Then we wouldn't have to be up here saying, how do we get people out of the consequences. It's crazy, the things that the the fruit of these trees that need to be uprooted. True power doesn't live in the dark. You need to spend time and develop yourself. You need to spend time and become a good citizen and behave lawfully. And if you don't, you need to know that there are consequences. There are legal processes that you must go through, right? And if you survive these legal processes, it can't be because you're clever. It can't be because you're plagiarizing someone else's testimony. If you survive the legal processes, it has to be because either you're not guilty or because the process is just. We can't call the legal process murderers, because when you undermine the justice system in this fashion, when you make the judges bow to mob action, when you manipulate and deceive the world in this fashion, you're building a world where, again, people are ruled by opinions, people are ruled by do what you say. And it's not that you created this problem, you see. It's not that you created this problem. It is that the problem was there before you rose. And you probably rose because you learned real well how to say key phrases to people, because people have been gaslit, brainwashed, hypnotized. So all you got to do is throw out these little key phrases of someone being deserving or undeserving, of the injustice, of how, the black people relate to you. All you got to do is throw out this garbage, and then the legal process is no longer about what happened, but it's about seeing whose side we can get people on. And it should never be about seeing whose side we should get people on. It's about making people better. It's not about devouring them. It's about correction. And correction is always for our betterment. Do you get what I'm saying? Does it make sense to you at all? Okay, so let's go back and look at Oppenheimer a little more, right? Because this hearing towards the end of Oppenheimer, where they controlled the evidence that was seen, they controlled the witnesses, they controlled the judges. The judges, they weren't so much on the payroll, but the one guy at the head of it was, and he was the only guy who had clearance to actually see the evidence. And it was all okay there, because you see, they weren't trying to convict him of a crime. It wasn't a trial. It was a hearing to decline his clearance, to decline his position, to make it so that he couldn't go on. And they justified themselves in this way. When you have cases like this, like with Oppenheimer, this is murder. And like Einstein said in the movie, one day they'll give you an award, but it won't be for you, it will be for them. It'll be for them so that they can stay looking righteous, so they can look like they're on your side. It's for them so they can pretend like they were sorry for anything they ever did without actually ever being sorry or correcting anything that they did, because they're still defrauding people of life, which is murder, by the way, by having closed door hearings in the dark, having trials, bringing up witnesses. Like, one of the witnesses against me, my brother David, I haven't seen since, 8th grade? Well, I saw him in passing a few times, but we never sat down to have a conversation. I don't think he's ever spoken a word to my children. The only child that he's ever even met is Dakota. And my brother David, who lives in Florida, as far as last I heard, I don't know. David kind of has wives all around the country. He's not like a Mormon or anything. He's not like a polygamist where the wives know about each other. But he's one of these, like, romantic scammers who take on wives so he can bleed them dry. And he takes on multiple wives because one wife is just not enough, you know? This is my brother David. This is why, people don't have relationships with him. As far as I know, the only one in the family who does have a relationship with him is my sister Hazel. And I also have not seen her since, outside of my mom's funeral, several years back. I haven't seen her since like 2008. So when we have the witnesses against me with people who know each other, who I haven't talked to in decades, almost 2 decades, and we say that this is what justifies us doing everything that we did against you. Because you didn't just take away my benefits with Social Security. You ruined my reputation. You targeted my children. You weaponized child protection agencies. You weaponized doctors. You weaponized teachers. And it's crazy, the stuff that they did to me, okay? And I know everybody wants to play the victim when they're under something, But listen to me. The one time where DCFS actually helped me when they came out, they got me into a shelter. Before they got me into a shelter, I called multiple times to get into a shelter, and they would always tell me, you can come, but you have to leave your children behind. What kind of agency tells you to leave your children behind? They knew who my children's father was. Leave my children behind? Not okay. So DCFS puts me in a shelter, right? And then they drop the case, and I have to come back home, and I have to eat mud. The next time they pretended like they were going to help me, they came out, they got him out of the house, and they started nitpicking. My daughter was 6. My youngest daughter was 6. And the only thing that they had to say against my house was I didn't have electrical coverings over the outlets. The little plugs you put on so babies don't put their fingers in the socket. She was making it sound like I was neglecting my children because I didn't have the protective covers over the outlet. When you make a big deal out of something that doesn't even belong there, my child's 6 years old. She's not putting her finger or anything else inside electrical sockets. She's at the age almost of reason. She knows better. You don't punish me for not having little covers on my electrical sockets. Everybody wants to play the victim, and so it makes it real hard to see when they're actually persecuting someone. But when I give you my testimony and you start to understand, no, they persecuted her. They forced her into a shelter, and then they just dropped the case, closed it, didn't help her at all. Didn't find her as guilty in the charges that they were Didn't find the allegations against her as founded. Didn't find the allegations against the children's father as founded. Closed it, sent her back after they caused all this ruckus. Because mind you, in that instant, they had pulled my daughter out of class and interrogated her. And all she could tell them was, Daddy grabbed Mom's wrist and hurt her. You know, because he dragged me around by my wrist that day. So we had him going off while the worker was there, saying that I was falsely accusing him, going around to the children with him telling them that I was crazy and I was doing this to hurt him and take him away. And I didn't call them. It was the school who had pulled my daughter out of class and interrogated her, looking for some reason to send DCFS to the house. Not something my daughter told willingly, just something that they pulled out of her, because they were going to be found. It was going to be found out the stuff that they were doing with my other kids, like trying to make it look like Livy had a behavior disorder and whatnot. And so they wanted to stir up trouble, because if they divide the house, then they can point fingers and they can say, we're not to blame for all this stuff in here. Look, they have problems over here. There's domestic violence. This is the issue here, you know. But no, they've been making up stuff all along the way. All along the way, I've been taking the hits, you know, for almost 10 years in living here, going through this with this school district, you know. And they like to whitewash their crimes after they isolate my kids, after they try to break my kids. They like to whitewash their crimes by being super nice to my kids. You know how many times my daughter got gift cards, Starbucks gift card, Target gift card, McDonald's gift cards. They send them to her in the mail with little cards telling her how much she means to them, you know. You're buttering up my kid so that she'll be your defender while you ruin her reputation in the dark. That's not okay with me. And yesterday she came home from school and she told me, Mom, I love school. I love all the people there. I love all my teachers. It's so good. And the fact that she brought this before me as I'm making this video tells me that, well, she was raised the right way, right? She's raised to love everybody. And in this loving everybody, it's protected her from them being able to target her the way that they did when she was younger, you know? But whatever she feels now, however nice you're being to her now, you know, it doesn't undo the pain of the past. It doesn't undo all this. You defrauded me of life for a decade. You imprisoned me for 10 years. No, not in a jail, in this house. I got no friends, you know. I have nobody to talk to. I just work all day long and do stuff for my kids. That's how I, you know, maintain my integrity. You know, that's how I roll out of bed every morning, because I have to do my work for my kids. But in doing my work for my kids, you know, they fail to understand that what these people did broke me, and there does need to be some justice. Needs to be some justice. And when I say I want justice, I'm saying I want all this to stop and never happen to anybody else again, because this is murder. This is murder. This is something that I'm never going to be able to walk out of, you know, which is why I'm like, okay, if I'm dying, we're dying together. We're dying together, and we're going to have this conversation, you know. We're going to talk about every little thing that happened. And yeah, sure, somebody, some big politician is going to come by and glean from my testimony and use it as his defense, which I find is offensive, by the way. Don't do that. You undermine my story, you know. Don't do that. Don't do that, because it's not true for you. You got a trial. I never had a trial. They Oppenheimered me. They Oppenheimered me, gave me a hearing behind closed doors that I wasn't even a part of, used witnesses that I have no contact with. They have no business speaking for or against me because they have no knowledge of me, no knowledge of my children. And these people have dictated, what the teachers will do. You run on other people's authority, and it's a problem. It's why I tell you, you have to be responsible for what you believe. You have to be responsible for your judgment, because you can't do all this stuff to me and then just keep throwing my brother David in my YouTube feed. You can't do all these things to me and then throw my sister up in my YouTube feed. I haven't seen them in decades. You want to throw my other siblings up at me. I haven't seen them in 3 decades. More than 3 decades. Almost 4 decades. You can't justify doing someone wrong. This is why we have a justice system. This is why the accused has rights. You think I did something wrong, you arrest me. You don't defraud me of my life. You arrest me and you give me a trial because I have a right to a trial. I have a right to a fair trial with a jury of my peers, not being my neighbors who you go and spread rumors to, not being my daughter's friends' parents who you go and spread rumors to. I have a right to scrutinize the witnesses against me and the evidence against me. I have a right, because some idiot can look at twisted facts and say, oh, she was on Social Security and she worked. Oh yeah, I was on Social Security and I worked part-time. Did you check my tax returns? Did you see how much money I made? Because at the hearing for Social Security, the only problem that he had with my earnings was 1 year I made over $9,000, and I didn't actually make that money. My brother did my taxes, and I asked him not to fudge my taxes because my brother knows how to maximize your refund by playing with numbers. I asked him not to do that to me. He did it to me. My check, my refund went to my mom. So when you hold me accountable for this, you need to understand. You need to understand that just because it looks one way does not necessarily mean it is this way. There's a story that, the devil, he has a way of pushing you to do things and then coming up to accuse you. Like with the tax thing, right? Not just the tax thing. If I go to the grocery store, I got someone asking me, Delilah, which one did you go to? What time was it when you went there? Did you go anyplace else? When I walk my dog, Delilah will chase me down in the car and take pictures. When it's not just my neighbors, it's Delilah. You don't understand the story of my life. This is not justice here. What is happening is not justice. This is the defrauding of a person of their life. Don't cheapen my testimony by using it as your alibi, because the justice system is holding you accountable. Don't do that to me. That is offensive to me because you undermine my testimony. Don't do that to me. I suffered for this. That's my testimony. I earn it. I earned it and I own it. You can't have it. You didn't earn it. You can't own it. You can't have it. You can say they're all throwing everything at me at once, and that typically happens. That typically happens when you lead a certain kind of life. When you sit up there like a dictator, it typically happens that you make some people angry, And when they sit in positions of power, they got no problem abusing their power. But they're not, like, bringing up a lynch mob against you like they did with Brett Kavanaugh, They're not doing that to you. They're bringing you to the court. So you can't call it murder. You can't call it a lynching. This is justice. You face it. You work with it. You cooperate. Because if we don't have this system, then what they did to me, they will do to everybody. And it's not to say that I'm alone in what I've done. Let me tell you, these people have a well-ordered machine. Their standard practice, okay? It's not a conspiracy theory. It's standard practice. When the licensing agency for the doctors, for the teachers, you know, when the licensing agency is the one pursuing you, while the other ones are pursuing you, it's real hard to see who is sitting at the top of it, but you know that everybody within it is being used, because the caseworker who came to my house was not my enemy. She was just working on an agenda. She's not big enough to be my enemy. My enemy is some coward sitting in the shadow pulling the strings of these agencies. And if these agencies, if these schools, if these doctors don't recognize that their strings are being pulled, then they need to understand that they're participating in a lynching. And yeah, I'm white and I can say it because they also made me a slave, okay? Because it's what they're doing. It's mob justice. It's mob justice. It's not justice. It's defrauding someone of life. It is murder. If this is not your testimony, don't quote my words. You know, if you got a trial, if you got to face a judge, you got legal representation, you got to see the evidence against you, you got the right to face your accuser, you got the right to scrutinize everything, you got the right to give a defense, you know? You have a right to be free from cruel and unusual punishment. Because the stuff they did to me, cruel and unusual punishment, is just the tip of the iceberg, you know? Don't cheapen my testimony by plagiarizing me. It's not right, you know? So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say for today in this video. I'll probably make another video later. But I wanted to be real clear about that, because though my views on my video says 0, people are still plagiarizing me. So I know you're listening. I know you're watching. And I hope that you receive correction, receive conviction even. I hope you understand. And if you're sitting in power, do something about what they're doing. Don't complain when you're on trial. You let it get that far, people get drunk on their power. They can do whatever they want to do because they have all these avenues at their disposal. Our system is a system of checks and balances. Checks and balances. If you don't check and balance people's power, then you can't complain when they pile it up on you. If it was your responsibility to check and balance power within the other branches of government, and you didn't do your job, and now you're seeing the consequence of it, please understand that the only way to fix it is that when you come into power, is that you take away the shadow justice system. You know, you say, we don't do this. This is America. People have rights. We came out of England because they did this stuff to us. Our very Constitution and Declaration of Independence was written so that we don't fall into stuff like this. We are not going to make this the standard practice of American justice. Not in the country my ancestors built, okay? No. We're going to make it better. Not trying to kill anybody. Trying to set you on the right path. Because this is not a free nation. This is bondage and slavery. This is cruel and unusual punishment. This is murder. And we are better than this. Y'all have a good day.